down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And apparently over on Rumble, so Rumble has made some changes to their interface, and so now Buddy is a little depressed because his dancing nanners don't work. Sorry, I got that in the chat. I had to throw that in there. Oh, also, we have someone over on Rumble with a birthday today. Maybe Coco might get a serenade here a little bit later in the program. All right, folks. I got to be honest with you. I'm a little perturbed. I'm a little, I guess some would say salty tonight. Tonight's the GOP debate. Obviously, everybody is, focused on the fact that Donald Trump is not there and who's going to attack whom, who's the target. Chances are it's going to be Ron DeSantis. I guess Fox News has, said that, they are not going to, allow people to have no more than like 3.5 minutes or something like that. To like recap. So somebody say like myself who grabbed some clips, I could only do like maybe 3.5 minutes worth in any one broadcast or something. I don't know. Anyway, it's a complete mess. And it is the first GOP debate. There's a lot of conversations about who's doing whom to what and who's going to be talking to whom and who is irrelevant, like Asa Hutchinson, I think is his last name, and Chris Christie and all of these other non-combatants that are out there. I mean, Tim Scott isn't really polling above 5, I don't believe. You have Nikki Haley, who's at like 3%. Vivek Ramaswamy's at 7, roughly in the polls, depending upon whose poll you talk to. So the reality of it is that this is the first debate, and because Donald Trump is not going to be there, I honestly don't think that a lot of people are really going to be watching. Now, the debate is supposed to start in roughly about 56 minutes or so. I'm not going to be done streaming, so, but it won't hurt my feelings any if you guys, decide to jump over there, because obviously the debates are important for most people. But the fact of the matter is that this race, this primary race, honestly, is Trump's to lose. And Ben Shapiro has been focusing a lot on Trump. He has been trying his best. He has been trying his best to point out that Trump, in his opinion, is not one that can beat Joe Biden. I actually think that is incorrect. I believe that Joe Biden is beatable. I believe that, Donald Trump is going to be a force to be reckoned with, especially when you keep looking at all of the Biden blunders that have been going on. There's even some suggestion that Biden might be kicked out of the whole thing just because of the fact that he's got, his problems with Hunter, the connections with Hunter, and so on and so forth. I got a little bit about that tonight. But what I really want to focus on, given the fact that this is the GOP debate tonight, I really want to focus on what I think should be the message for any of the GOP candidates. And I've said this before on this program. I've talked about how Donald Trump needs to stop focusing on his supposed opponents in the primary and focus specifically on Biden. He needs to step away from the fact because, again, I mean, he's polling literally 40 points ahead of anyone else at this point in juncture. And it seems like every time the left seems to hit him with something new, they he grows stronger. I mean, the guy has 4 indictments that he's going to be working and dealing with throughout the entire election cycle and potentially even beyond that. He's got all kinds of things. Tomorrow, Trump is intending on turning himself over in Georgia. So there's a huge news cycles. There's a bunch of news cycles that are going on with the idea of, Trump. It's all about Trump. Now, I am not going to at all be I've lost the word I was looking for. But I'm not going to sugarcoat anything and basically say that he essentially Trump likes to talk about Trump. Trump is very narcissistic. He's always been narcissistic. And then let's be honest. I mean, most politicians they have to have a little bit of a tiny bit of narcissism in them, just because of the fact that, it's you have to want to be in the spotlight in order to take the job of a politician, because that just comes with the territory. However, a good politician, and especially one that is truly focused on the country, is going to focus everything not necessarily on them, but on the situation at hand, maybe the legislation at hand. They're going to talk about the American people. They're going to talk about what any kind of legislation is going to do for the people. And this, honestly, is where Trump needs to focus. We're not going to get that, though. And Ben has really, really, really been saying that Trump does not have the chops to win against Biden, especially if Trump focuses on nothing more than him, his legal troubles, and of course 2020. In my personal opinion, I think 2020 is, we have to fix whatever issues are there. All right, we do have to fix that. At the same time, though, relitigating it over and over and over is sort of detrimental for that. And so because of that, again, he needs to really focus on his opponent, his end run opponent in Biden. And so far, he's not doing that. I mean, the closest person to him is, in terms of depending upon which poll you talk about, is Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis's campaign seems to have gone through several fits and starts and all kinds of issues. And so, he is, he just has no business and no purpose really to go after these folks. This is his race to lose. He is in charge. He is large and in charge and ready to go. And he has to, in my mind, he should just act as though he's already won and just go. So anyway, I'm having struggles and issues with people who are sitting here saying that Biden is doing a good job and that Biden is, old Grandpa Joe and everything that the mainstream media is trying to paint this man is really, it's just irking me. See, I grew up under the philosophy, my stepfather put this in me a long time ago, which basically his adage was actions speak louder than words, because anyone can tell you whatever they want. It's what that person does that will show their true inner self. And so I'm going to start off tonight, when we get here, showing you a little bit of what Joe Biden actually is. But first, let me tell you a little bit about tonight's. Well, first of all, I do have to go with this. Hold on. Yeah. So we have to announce, of course, that today is Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. So there's that. And for tonight, I'm going to tell you about TGRN, True Grit Roots Network. Now, we're making some changes at the network. We are kicking off on September 5th our new genre-focused, on the blues, genre-focused TGRN Blues will kick off on September 5th with just a ton. I think there's like 10 to 12. I can't remember. I've got so many DJs on-air personalities that I've been training and everything to use our operational system. But they are coming on board. They've got some exciting new programs, new music. It's going to be just incredible for new programming and everything else on the TGRN network. And also, or I should say just TGRN, because TGRN network is actually redundant, but on TGRN. And also, just to let you know, we are putting together a lineup to launch our second channel, which the second channel will be a talk channel. I'll be giving you some more information. It'll be TGRN Talk. That's currently slated for the first part of November. For the first part of November. And I'll get you some more information on that. Might be some interviews and things like that coming up. For tonight's drink in my glass, my special LuckyShotUSA.com glass. It is Redneck Riviera whiskey, John Rich's whiskey, and it looks like I'm getting a little low here. I may have to go and grab some more of this. But yes, it is in my LuckyShotUSA.com We the People glass. You can see the bullet right here. You can see the flag. You can see the We the People right there. And of course, I've got my rocks in the bottom. Little stones, whiskey stones. Anyway. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with the program, of course. All right. So Joe Biden, the things that Joe Biden does and says should be of no surprise to anyone. In fact, when he was running the presidential campaign starting in, right around 2019, and his, basement, what do you call it? His basement, well, you can't really call it a campaign. But anyway, so, yes. So anyway, he, his actions talk to us. I mean, he would say things like, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. If you don't do, if you're not behind me and all this other stuff. I mean, he's said a lot of stuff. And a lot of people, especially mainstream media, kind of swept it away. That's just old Grandpa Joe, old Uncle Joe, whatever. Well, he's done a lot of things and shown us exactly who he is. And so why anybody can sit here and still be behind this guy, it is completely beyond me. I am so lost, it's not even funny when it comes to this stuff. Also, point taken, Saturday's show is going to be a memorial of the 13 that died during Joe Biden's withdrawal debacle from Afghanistan, because that is the anniversary. It was on August 26th that the 13 soldiers died over in Afghanistan. And so I am going to, I'm putting together something for that. So make sure that you don't miss that. But This first photo, and I bring that up only because of this first photo that I'm going to show you, is a image that I think everybody is very well aware of, for the most part. But this thing, honestly, this thing just, it just chaps my hide to see this. This kind of just, just pisses me off. But Joe Biden looking at his watch while the 13 came home. You know, as commander in chief, honestly, he should have been standing there at attention, and, you know, it's a very solemn occasion. I don't know why he was looking at his watch. The mainstream media tried to cover it up, but this just irks the hell out of me. And, you know, as commander in chief, he does actually gain the ability to salute, which I've seen some of his salutes, and they are nothing to be, nothing to be, oh God, this guy is just literally disgusting. I can't even imagine. He is so disgusting that, and embarrassing to the country. But anyway, he took a moment, which this is of course the talk of many people. He took a moment to head out to Maui on his freaking Nevada vacation after he had come back from a Rehoboth vacation. I mean, the man has been on vacation more times than he has actually been on the job, technically. But he apparently has this habit where whenever he talks to somebody, he has to try to relate to them. And when he tries to relate to them, it actually comes off as being very disingenuous. You know, this guy is just, he is only centered about himself, and that's part of the problem. But he apparently went and did this talk, or gave a speech, and as you can see here, the image on the screen, if you're watching on Rumble, instead of, you know, listening to this later, you can go check out Rumble, the Whiskey Musings Broadcast on Rumble. Yeah, Outlaw Dogs, not relate, outdo. Yeah, he's always got a one up. But anyway, he's standing there with a very intricate lei, that they, of course, you know, the Hawaiian people give out leis. That's how they welcome people. But anyway, he was speaking to the victims, and rather than trying to be compassionate and empathetic, he had to pull up a story, as he often does. And in this particular case, he brought up a story about he had a kitchen fire when he was, when he and Jill were married in Delaware. And I don't know why the media are covering for him. They are saying, the media has been saying that this is, you know, this is empathetic Joe, that he was being very empathetic. Well, actually, no, he wasn't. He essentially bragged about the fact that he had a Corvette, 1967 Corvette. He talked about how his wife Jill was in danger, when in actuality the fire itself was essentially put out in 20 minutes, very low keyed, you know, the very little damage to the actual house. And the cat wasn't in danger. He mentioned his cat, the cat wasn't in danger, so on and so forth. And he just, I'm sorry. I mean, I thought he was going to be a bad president. I really did. But again, his actions over the course of the last 3 years has been, you know, more and more disgusting and despicable. And, but essentially what he said was, and I'm just going to kind of paraphrase here, is, I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, of what it's like to lose a home. Lose a home. They didn't lose their home. They were temporarily inconvenienced by having to go to one of their other homes while the home that they were in was being repaired. He said, years ago, now 15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at a home on a little lake that's outside of our home. Well, not a lake, but a big pond. And it hit a wire and it came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning ducts. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat. And then he says, but all kidding aside, I watched the firefighters, the way they responded. He said that the firefighters ran into the flames, into his home to save my wife and save my family. And then, of course, he follows up with his typical, not a joke. Now, whenever you hear Joe Biden speak, he's got several verbal tics that will tell you when he is lying. One of them is not a joke. Another one is not hyperbole. And that kind of stuff. And he just continues on about this thing. This isn't the first time that he's done this, by the way. This isn't the first time that he's done this. He's done this on multiple occasions. And, he has to continue to do what he thinks will make people relate to him in his speeches. And rather than discussing it, he continues on, especially when he's talking about, whenever you see things about his son, Bo, he talks about how Bo died in, Iraq. He didn't die in Iraq. He died from brain cancer after he got out of the service. And every single time that he goes and connects or tries to connect with people, he just makes it even worse. Well, as you can see from this Daily Wire piece, CNN praises Biden's Maui speech, where he compared the historic fire to his small kitchen fire. And in fact, let me go ahead and bring this up here. Let's see if I can, whoops. Nope. Let's see if I can bring this up live here while I'm sitting here.
President and Dr. Biden spent several hours both over Lahaina on the ground here and meeting with both first responders and victims of this tragedy at the big shelter, the War Memorial Shelter in central Maui. And he said the right things in many cases. When he came to the microphone to give his statements, he said the thing that a lot of folks I've been hearing from for 2 weeks have been saying, that he wants Maui, the people of Maui, to help determine how this place is rebuilt. There was a question as to who will have the most influence in that conversation going forward. Locals here, working class Native Hawaiians and multi-generational locals, are worried of disaster capitalism, people moving in to exploit this and buy up as much land as they can in this paradise and rebuild it for their interests as well. The president promises that that won't happen. It remains to be seen. There's a lot of forces at play here right now. He did serve as empathizer in chief after 5 days of being mostly silent on the issue publicly, but the governor said he was working behind the scenes to assure first responders that.
Okay, so again, there's that empathizer in chief. He's not the empathizer. He's not the empathizer, okay? He literally isn't. I don't seem to get it. And it's not just, like I said, it's not just this. I have a little clip here. It seems ironic that I was thinking about the program for the show tonight. And I was thinking about, everything that I had heard about his visit. And I started to get wrapped up in the thoughts like, oh my gosh, this guy just continually is completely 100% fake. And he also has to, try and prove himself, one up himself, tie it. I can't even imagine what it's like being an individual who is faced with this. Now, there was another article that I saw from the Daily Wire, and I wanted to bring it up, but for some reason I lost the link and I couldn't find it again. But he apparently when one of the Gold Star families, now for those of you that don't know, a Gold Star family is someone who has lost a loved one in the service to their country. It's the military. And one of the Gold Star family moms of one of the 13 that died in the Afghanistan bombing was saying that Biden came over to her, and rather than, give her empathy and say, I'm sorry for your loss. It was something that we couldn't have prevented. We did our best. Remember that they, your loved one died, saving Americans out of Afghanistan, whatever, some other kind of jargon or everybody knows that it's bullshit, but he actually was like, do you want a picture? Like, he looked at it. He looked at meeting with this Gold Star family member as a freaking photo opportunity. And this guy is a disgusting human being. How he can represent our country is beyond me. And what we allowed him. The news media knew about this guy before he even got hired. And by hired, put into office. But anyway, even before then, let me just, I'm going to play you this clip. This is a short that came up while I was thinking about the program and thinking about what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it and everything else. This short came up on this YouTube short came up on my phone, and I had seen it before, and I was like, hey, you know what? I want to go and I want to take a look or find that. Okay. Now this is a United States Marine, Tyler Vargas Andrews. And it's going to sound a little cut off in the front because I unfortunately, I can't control front, back, forward, back, whatever. But I want you to listen to this guy. And just to kind of give you an idea, I believe he was one of the survivors of the bombing in Afghanistan. I could be wrong. But the man, for those on the audio side of the program, the man lost his arm. He lost his right arm. He has a prosthetic arm. And he's describing an encounter that he had with Joe Biden visiting him in the hospital. So let's take a listen to this.
Biden, their little entourage of people and photographer. Right away, remember him coming up to me, trying to shake my hand. And I look at him. I don't have an arm. And my left arm is in this big ass cast, completely immobile. All I can do is move my head. My arm's gone. And he says, oh, and kind of stands up and then goes over to reach for my fingers because about an inch of my fingers are showing, and just grabs my fingers. Doesn't greet me or anything. Just almost immediately starts talking about how their son served in the military. Doesn't say anything about what happened. My mom said that. She's like, I don't give a fuck. Say, I don't care what you guys fucking do. She's like, you better take care of him for the rest of his fucking life. I'm sitting there and he comes over to me and he leans over me. And I have a picture of this to prove it. I'll show you this picture that I have. He's this close to my face and he's like, what do you want? And I said, what do you want? I said, what? He said, what do you want? And I'm just confused. I just got blown up. I just fucking saw my friends die next to me. And I just want to be myself. And he's like, huh? And my mom's furious. And she's like, he said he just wants to be himself. He just wants to be him.
So, again, this is a demonstration of what Joe Biden is. He literally is a despicable human being. And I just, this frustrates me. This really frustrates me. Now, to be completely, forthright and honest, I kind of agree in a little bit, in a sense. Presidents take a lot of heat whenever something catastrophic happens by them not jumping into the fray as quickly as they possibly can. Okay. Now, keep in mind that whenever a president travels, and I just got to say this, whenever a president travels, there's a lot of logistics that go into it. There's a lot of things that have to get put into place. And there's a lot of resources, local resources, in terms of police and those kinds of things, emergency vehicles, stuff like that, that get taken up when a president goes to visit a disaster area. In my mind, a president, and in my particular situation, I would say that in my mindset, it is acceptable for a president to say, I am not going to go to this location because I do not want to divert emergency resources away from where they are best suited. So to sit here and complain about him not going to a site. So for an example, Bush going off and seeing Katrina, he took a few hits on that one. Granted, Trump showing up in East Palestine with supplies and things like that, that was nice to see. Sometimes it's nice for people to see and that kind of thing, but you have to kind of gauge and weigh the thing, the desired outcome. You have to weigh the benefit of you showing up versus taking away resources where they could really be needed. Now, that being said, okay, I get it. It's nice to see when a high value figure comes into those kinds of areas. It gives people a feeling of hope. It gives people a feeling of acceptance and everything. But the fact of the matter is that Biden waited for a very long time to not even talk about it. And his whole thing, no comment thing, that was ridiculous. I mean, at least he could have walked over to the reporters and said something to the effect of, I'm in contact. I've got FEMA rolling. We are working on getting emergency help there. Don't have any details for you. But instead, he sits there and says, no comment. No comment. That is just crazy. Absolutely crazy. Okay. Now, what's even worse also, well, first of all, before I get to that, apparently a lot of people in Maui were not happy about him showing up, and you've seen a lot of the videos and stuff like that. I'm not going to necessarily show you, but apparently during the time that his entourage or his motorcade came through, there were a lot of people standing on the sides that were holding up signs, protesting, and very colorful double-barreled middle fingers, family-friendly middle fingers out there. And yeah, it was just ridiculous for him to have even bothered to go out there. And it was just a complete and utter disaster of a situation like this. And even the Federalist brought up in terms of this. Yeah, they were screaming a lot of F words. Yes, correct. That is correct. That is correct. So let me show you this, though. The Federalist brings up a good point. And Biden's lazy response to catastrophes like the Hawaii fire proves that he is a liability. And he is a liability, for sure. And we know he is. He talked about when he landed, he was talking about the heat. Not exactly something that that I would necessarily say after, people have lost kids. There's still, last I heard, was that there was 850 people still missing. and, well over 100 dead. They still don't even know last count of the kids that are missing. And what's weird is that when you start thinking about that and start hearing a little more details on that, apparently because of the winds and the power outages, the local school districts decided to let the kids go home early. They decided to shut the schools down. And so there's a potential that a lot of those houses that burned had children in them with no parental supervision because the parents were off doing their work and things like that. But anyway, one of the things that the left stream media is trying to cover up too, and I'm coming up to it. So here is this is very, very sad. So Biden was actually attending a memorial kind of service, I guess, to discuss the sadness. It was kind of let me just, again, a memorial of some type. And he appears to have fallen asleep. Now, just kind of watch what happens here. As soon as it comes up. Okay, come on. All right, well, apparently the video is not going to play for me. Kind of stinks. But anyway, you can see in the image, he's already starting to sort of doze off. So he's sitting there and his head is lowering while they're discussing and talking and so on and so forth. His head is lowering. Well, the mainstream media itself, they tried to pawn this off, and somebody on Twitter tried to pawn that incident off on the fact that Biden was praying. Because he, dropped his head only for a minute and then, popped back up and was awake again. Well, here's the thing. Biden's a Catholic. Biden claims to be a devout Catholic. So let me explain something to you about Catholics, because I grew up in the Catholic religion. Catholics, when they pray, they cross themselves after every prayer. It is an ingrained, instinctual reaction. If you've been in the Catholic Church for as long as Biden has supposedly been, everything, you always cross yourself. You always do the sign of the cross. You touch your forehead, you touch your chest, you touch one shoulder and the other. It is just an ingrained habit. If he was praying, he would have crossed himself. For the mainstream media to sit here and say, "Oh, he was praying." No, he wasn't. He wasn't praying. He wasn't praying. He was not praying. He was, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That's how you do it. And he was not praying. He was falling asleep. He fell asleep. And it's not just for this, this whole thing. He's just a completely despicable human being. He has yelled at folks who have talked. There's reports coming out of people yelling at his aides and things like that when they bring up Hunter. He's just a despicable human being. Now, coming up Saturday, okay, so let me, to remind you folks about Saturday, I went and actually got this book. It's called Kabul, The Untold Story of Biden's Fiasco and the American Warriors Who Fought to the End. Now, I've just started reading this, but there's a section in the very front that I'm going to read for Saturday's show. And if you have the means to get this book, I would, even though I haven't read it, I can tell you that the first part of it, I'm impressed. And it's by Jerry Dunleavy and James Hassan, Hasson, Hasson. And you should go and try and get this book if you can. But I want to read through it in order to fully understand what happened in Afghanistan. And I'll be talking about that on Saturday as it comes up. So anyway, it's just he's been wrong on so many foreign policy issues. He was wrong in Vietnam when he was a senator. He was wrong with with the Iraq War. He was wrong on Osama bin Laden. He's been wrong multiple times over and over and over again. How anybody could consider this man, to be proper for the Oval Office is beyond me. I mean, even, you could say Trump doesn't have very much foreign experience in terms of like military experience. But in reality, he has international business experience, which negotiations, for the most part, is a business kind of venture. And so you could say that could translate fairly easily into being able to negotiate peace deals and those kinds of things. I mean, it's just it's a business negotiation. So to sit here, though, and to actually say that Biden is the man is completely asinine. To be completely honest with it, it is completely asinine. As far as that goes. So, yeah. I cannot understand why this man was able to get into the White House. Even if you take away the fact of any kind of malfeasance, election malfeasance, why anybody would vote for this guy, even now, all the polls are showing that, Trump and Biden are neck and neck. And I even made the comment to my family, I'm like, sometimes all you get is the choice between two bad options, and you have no other choice but to go for the one that is the least worst. But this guy doesn't even, he's not even part of the ballpark, in my opinion. He just isn't. And I just don't understand. Just don't understand why anyone could sit here and compare. I got into an argument with somebody on Twitter about this. They were going back and forth about how bad how bad Trump was. And I'm just going, yeah, well, you could say that about Joe, and here's some more about Joe. And if you sit there and stack up the two of these fellas and you really look at them and you take away some of your biases and you actually put them up against each other, there is no comparison. I've got problems with Trump, with some of his personal exploits and things like that. But there is no way that I would ever vote for Biden at all. At all. All right, so I'm going to take a second. Let me go ahead and tell you about this wonderful thing that I've been talking about for a while. You guys know about the Institute on the Constitution. I talk about them every Saturday night. But I want to get a little more focused on the Constitution of the United States in this wonderful Saddleback leather-bound edition. It is buddy tested, buddy approved. It's got rounded corners, great water-resistant pages, and you can check out that stitching. It goes all the way through. It has a 100-year warranty against materials and workmanship. They will either fix it or replace it. Fix it or replace it for free if something should go wrong. You can get this wonderful little item, and keep in mind, this is a great stocking stuffer, by the way, for all of your family members. It is a keepsake item. You can get this by going to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. That's constitution.whiskeymusings.online. Drops you right to the page where you can buy it. And of course, your purchase helps out the program right here, the Whiskey Musings broadcast program. It is buddy tested. It's also Billy approved, Billy the Kid. So just so you understand what's going on here, Outlaw Dogs went and got hers today. And apparently Billy walked up, one of her pups, Billy the Kid. He's been featured here. Billy the Kid came up and grabbed the Constitution right out of her hands. And so, yeah, it's a great little book. It's a wonderful thing. I reference it all the time here on the program, and you can definitely go and get that at constitution.whiskeymusings.online, or you can also go to IOTC.whiskeymusings.online. That's IOTC.whiskeymusings.online, and take a look at some of their other course materials and information as well. So anyway, all right. With all of this talk about Hawaii and the fires and the hurricane that hit the West Coast, which, by the way, for anybody who is interested, Bam and little Z, we were talking about her daughter Z. We were talking about them. They actually lived in California. Apparently they came through fairly unscathed. They got a lot of rain, but that was about it, which is cool. But there's been talk and back and forth about climate change, and climate change is just this huge thing about it. And I just got to tell you, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. And it's not so much that the climate isn't changing. I mean, let's be honest. The climate is changing. But the level that the climate is changing to catastrophic levels like they keep talking about is not. It really isn't happening. Now, there was I don't remember who it was. It was some senator or something like that on X, formerly known as Twitter, who came out with this thing about how the storms are getting worse and, they're getting more frequent and so on and so forth. Well, I had to go and kick that off to show the reality of the situation. So check this out. This is in FEE.org is the organization. This is a story that they have here. It's actually a myth that hurricanes are getting worse because of climate change. Now, this article is from September 2021, shortly after the hurricane that hit Florida. In the wake of Hurricane Ida is when it was. So, New Jersey and New York were where he went to go. And Biden went there and of course, was talking about climate change. And of course, my wonderful governor idiot, Governor Inslee here in Washington, keeps talking about climate change, and all of the left talks about climate change, and it's all wrong. I mean, it literally is. It's all wrong. But apparently there was a study data that was from the American Meteorological Society that was recently published in the Wall Street Journal that actually shows fewer hurricanes are actually landing on the continental U.S., not more. And a Danish economist, I don't know why he's an economist looking at hurricanes, but anyway, Bjorn Lomborg in the journal states, despite what you may have heard, Atlantic hurricanes are not becoming more frequent. In fact, the frequency of hurricanes making landfall in the continental U.S. has declined slightly since 1900. So anyway, he continues down a little bit. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. This another comment in the Science News says that a new statistical analysis of historical records and satellite data suggests that there aren't actually more hurricanes now than there were roughly 150 years ago. Researchers reported in the July 13 Nature Communications. The findings reported by Nature Communications were not an outlier. As The Economist reported in 2017 and The Washington Post reported in 2015, a plethora of research shows hurricanes are becoming less frequent, not more frequent. But that's only half of the story, according to the piece. Lomborg also claims that they are growing in intensity is also false. He says, no, there aren't more powerful hurricanes either. The frequency, category 3 and above, making landfall since 1900, is also trending slightly down. A July Nature paper finds that the increases in strong hurricanes you've heard so much about are not part of a century scale increase, but a recovery from a deep minimum in the 1960s to the 1980s. And another thing that is also not necessarily mentioned in this article, but the thing about it is that everybody talks about, you'll hear the left talking about how the number of destruction and everything else that is going on. The level of destruction of all these storms is increasing. Well, part of the reason for the level of destruction being increasing is because people are becoming more and more populous in places where, where things are, we're building more, we're putting more stuff in. Cost of items are going up. And, so just take what these climate change people are actually saying and throw it out. So anyway, I also have another article. I got to find it here, but that goes along with this, and I didn't put it in order. So hang on just a second. Let me find it. No. Where is it here? I think. Oh yeah. So here, the Daily Fetched. This is kind of ironic, but this one's from the Daily Fetched. Check this title out. America's wealthy elites are responsible for 40% of the emissions while lecturing everyone else on climate change. Oh my gosh. Okay, so 40% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the United States come from 10% of the country's wealthiest households, according to new research published in PLOS Climate. PLOS Climate is an open access journal that aims to advance the understanding of climate patterns, processes, and impacts with open research from diverse perspectives. According to the study, which analyzed household income data from 1990 to 2019, 40% of the total U.S. emissions were associated with income flows to the highest earning 10% of households, while GHG emissions among the bottom 90% had actually decreased. It also adds that the income from the top 1% was linked to upwards of 17% of greenhouse gases, GHG, greenhouse gas emissions. The study, which Progressives Research conducted, so this is the left that discussed it, or conducted this, suggests remedying this emissions inequality via an alternative income or shareholder-based carbon tax. All right. So anyway, this is This is just, there's not enough evidence to demonstrate that this stuff is actually happening. I'm sorry. Yes, climate change does occur, but it's not human pushed. And of course, you know, I've even said it on the program multiple times that you know, we are not the overriding factor in all of this. Humans sit here and think that we are, you know, huge in terms of what this thing is going on. But yeah, it just is ridiculous to me to sit here and think that humans, in as infinitesimal as we actually are in comparison to this big planet, that we are able to affect things. And it's not even America. I mean, you know, America, we keep talking about trying to limit our gases and everything else. But in reality, China, India, and Russia are the top three. So yeah, it just just is a mess. Just is a mess. But anyway. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the border, because that's another Biden debacle, obviously. That's another Biden debacle that, apparently now a majority of New York voters, this is in Breitbart, according to a poll, an overwhelming majority of New York voters call migrant flood a serious problem. Now, you'll remember I talked last time on this program, or a couple times ago, that the migrant number of crossings, especially on the southern border and on the northern border too, because I pulled up about the Washington state having like 500% more crossings. I think it was 575 for the exact number, but the number of crossings actually upticked in July for this year. And so, you know, here we have New York. Now, I got to say, you know, Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis went and they started busing migrants, illegal immigrants, to these cities. And so now all these cities who were sitting there, in particular New York, but also Chicago too. I've got an article on Chicago as well. But even the cities that claim to be sanctuary cities have really, they've decided they're crying uncle. I mean, that's essentially what they're doing here. We've heard Eric Adams, who is the mayor of New York, keeps talking about how he's got no space to put them, so on and so forth. And so they're starting to cry uncle. They're starting to understand that maybe, just maybe, illegal immigration is not what they believed it would be. So here from the piece, an overwhelming majority of New York voters believe mass immigration now flooding the state is a serious problem. A Siena College poll released Tuesday reveals New Yorkers, including huge majorities of Democrats, Republicans, Independents, upstaters, and downstaters, overwhelmingly say that the recent influx of migrants to New York is a serious problem for the state. The pollster, Siena College pollster Stephen Greenberg said. The poll found 82% of voters found the migrant situation that has plagued the state since May to be a serious problem, with a slim majority, 54%, calling it very serious. Also a majority, 58%, say New Yorkers have already done enough and should now work to slow the flow of migrants, the poll found. The plurality of voters also said migrants resettling in New York over the last 20 years or so has been a burden and not a benefit to the state. Well, it's not only New York, as I alluded to earlier. Chicago, according to the Washington Free Beacon, Chicago Dems predict city's migrant crisis will intensify ahead of the Democratic convention. Now, I don't know if you recall, but there were some Chicago folks that came out. There was a video on some Chicago folks that came out, and they essentially they came out and they said that, you know, the migrants coming in and taking away city resources for other low-income Americans, basically. It essentially was, a problem, and they were arguing, or they were saying that this is something that needs to be fixed. Well, an aide, according to the piece here, an aide to Chicago's Democratic mayor, the new one, not Miss Beetlejuice, but the new one, is worried that Republican governors will bus more migrants to the city before it hosts the 2024 Democrat National Convention. Chief of Staff, let's see, Christine Passione Zayas, who is a deputy chief of staff for Mayor Brandon Johnson, said on Monday, "We have a plan for the increase. They're going to do everything they can because this is all political. And they want to make the case that Democratic-led cities are not capable of living up to the values that we have." The convention is slated for a year from this August. Passione Zayas said Republicans want to topple our operation and prove Democrats are incompetent. Well, I hate to tell you this, sweetheart, but yeah, Democrats are incompetent, as I've been showing on this program over and over and over again. But anyway, the city is also struggling to care for thousands of illegal migrants. Fox 32 Chicago reported, quote, "Over the last week alone, the number of new arrivals sleeping on the floors of Chicago police stations has increased 6% to 1,100. Even though Johnson has made it a priority to decompress police stations, another 170 new arrivals have taken up residence at O'Hare International Airport. With 15 shelters housing 6,360 new arrivals, Chicago already spends upward of $20 million per month to house, feed, clothe, and care for migrants. The $51 million in emergency funding approved by a divided city council on May 31st carried the city only through June 30th. So it's not only expensive, but it's, yeah. Anyway, so anyway, yeah, it's not only New York, it's Chicago, it's pretty much any of these cities. They're all just going on about it. And they are having all kinds of problems with this, and why they don't just announce this whole thing is just crazy. Anyway. So, yeah, it's just a complete mess. Anything Democrats touch, it just is horrible. Well, there's enough stuff coming out about, Hunter. I've been talking about this quite a bit. Well, there's some new information. You know that David Weiss got announced as the, special prosecutor now, or special counsel, I think is the correct term. But anyway, he's not as clean as what other people have said. He's another, I told you on this program about David Weiss that there would be some information and stuff that would come out about him. And I really do believe that he was appointed that just as kind of a cover up, for this entire situation. And honestly, it doesn't really surprise me any to see that this came out here. Let's see, that was 20. So yesterday, this came out yesterday. The Washington Examiner has this piece. Hunter Biden investigation, Democratic donors and Biden allies found in David Weiss's office. So, according to this piece, at least 7 prosecutors who worked for the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office over the last several years of the Hunter Biden investigation appear to be Democratic donors, a Washington Examiner analysis found. One of them appears to have previously unreported personal relationship with the Biden family, at one point referring to Hunter Biden as a good friend. Now, there was another, just a side note, there was another piece that came out that was talking about the fact that David Weiss actually worked with Beau Biden while Beau was the attorney general in Delaware, and worked intimately with him to discuss case strategies and things like that. So how this guy, David Weiss, can be objective in this entire thing it's out there. I mean, it literally is. So if you honestly believe that David Weiss is going to do anything right now, I'm going to tell you, probably not. They are just attempting to cover things up. Back to the piece here. David Weiss, the U.S. attorney in Delaware, who earlier this month received special counsel status, has faced criticism from all sides in the months since 2 IRS whistleblowers aired claims that his office engaged in a pattern of preferential treatment for the Biden family. Well, now we know that doesn't really surprise us any for that. Republicans pointed to claims as evidence that President Joe Biden's Justice Department was working to protect the Biden family from scrutiny. Hunter Biden's legal team has begun to argue that Weiss discarded an earlier offer of immunity only to appease Republican critics in the wake of the whistleblower testimony, accusing Weiss of bias in the opposite direction. And yeah, it's no, I don't think he did that on purpose. I think that was the judge's doing. He knew that was that sweetheart deal, was just a mess. But anyway, it just continually goes even further and further. This family is just absolutely disgusting and horrible. And I am embarrassed to have them representing our United States of America. They thought that, they thought that Trump was bad, but yeah. So apparently McCarthy, just to kind of, well, actually, before I get on to this next one, I do owe somebody a bit of a song. Apparently over on Rumble, Coco Dominguez's birthday is today, and I also owe Outlaw Dogs as well, so I'm going to get them both at one. So join me in wishing Coco Dominguez a happy birthday and Outlaw Dogs a happy belated birthday. And to both of you, I will go ahead and do this. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Coco Dominguez and Outlaw Dogs. Happy birthday to you. And many more. All right, there you go. Yeah, it's much better than Biden singing. like Mark does on the Mark K show. Oh God, I could go forever without hearing that ever again. I wish that Mark would just, something would happen to his computer and that clip would be gone. So anyway, happy birthday, Coco and Outlaw Dogs. Here's to you. Cheers. And Hopefully you guys had great birthdays. I know it's like the end of the day, so hopefully you two had great birthdays. That's fantastic. Another year, unfortunately, older, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. All right. So moving on, apparently McCarthy has gotten a little bit, and I do mean little, for those of you on the audio portion of the program, I'm holding my finger and thumb very, very close together. A little bit of cojones. So McCarthy has decided to weigh in a little bit, and he says that the House may launch the Biden impeachment inquiry, when Congress reconvenes. He said that the only stories that have not changed are the whistleblowers from the IRS. Their story has held up time and time again. From the piece here, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy suggested on Tuesday the House of Representatives could launch an impeachment query in the near future if the Biden administration does not provide lawmakers with a litany of requested documents. The California lawmaker suggested that should the administration stall House investigations into the First Family's business dealings, the lower chamber would resort to an impeachment inquiry. He told Larry Kudlow on Fox Business, the thing that holds up whether we do an impeachment query, provide us the documents we're asking. If they provide us the documents, there wouldn't be a need for an impeachment inquiry. But if they withhold the documents and fight like they have now to not provide the American public what they deserve to know, we will move forward with an impeachment inquiry when we come back into session. Okay. Yeah. He's I'm sorry, but you know, if you recall when I say I had things remain to be seen, and again, you know, keep in mind, actions speak louder than words. He's not doing this very, very well in this particular situation. Yeah. Anyway, he's a rhino. I mean, that's what he was before. He doesn't have the cojones to do this. And even if he did, it wouldn't matter anyway, because the Senate is controlled by the Democrats. So yeah, that's just, I mean, holding out hope for the impeachment is not going to happen. But I will tell you this much though, that if we can go and get people out to vote, if we can convince people that, provided, you know, assuming that Trump wins the nomination, which right now he is the front runner, assuming that he wins the nomination, we as Republicans really have to, or as conservatives, really have to get behind that guy. We really and truly need to get behind Trump if he is the nominee, or whoever is the nominee. And it bugs me. It really, really bugs me when I hear people who say, well, I'm never going to vote for Trump because I hate blah, 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 but I'm a conservative. Well, I hate to tell you this, folks. Actually, no, I don't hate to tell you this. I don't hate to tell you this. There's one thing that should take precedence over all else, and that is beating the Democrats. We can't afford to sit idly by and allow the Democrats to win just because we don't like the candidate that's in front of us. I voted for people whom I didn't care for in my past because of the fact that I knew that the guy that they were, or the person they were running against, was even worse. Okay. But it irks me when somebody says just because they don't like Trump, or they don't like, you know, what the Republicans are doing, or they don't like this, they don't like that, that we have to throw away a perfectly good vote. No, folks, The overall objective is to beat the left Democrats who are destroying our country, taking down our Constitution, assaulting all of our law and order and civil liberties. And we need to focus on them. We need to focus on them. If it happens to be Trump who is nominated, and right now it looks like it's going to be, I will be behind Trump. If it turns out to be Ron DeSantis, I'm behind Ron DeSantis. I'm behind whoever is going to get the Democratic train wreck that we have in the Oval Office right now, who is the head of a criminal enterprise and has been for years, out of the Oval Office. We need to focus our efforts on beating them. Forget if you're handed the choice between two not so great choices, you kind of have no other choice but to pick one who is the least worst, which is exactly what happened in 2016. I mean, you had Hillary Clinton, who was an absolute disaster of a candidate. How she ever thought that she had, how she ever thought that she had it in the bag is totally beyond me. She was listening to the wrong people for sure. But Trump, while he's not necessarily the greatest in his personal life, he was a good president. He got the job done. He gave us 4 years of economic prosperity after pulling out from the Obama era. He gave us 4 years of no wars. He also, believe it or not, with the whole Soleimani thing, I mean, that was my one complaint about him, was that he had never been in the military. So him having the chops to be able to do something to protect America was the one part that I was a little questionable about. And he went ahead and got rid of Soleimani. He authorized the attack to take out Soleimani. So that, in my view, again, is beyond the whole point of his personal life and his personal matters. And there are people like Mama Five Kitties over on Rumble says, I love Trump and I'm open about it and don't care. There's a lot of people who are like that. And he's got his followers who absolutely love him. Just because I don't care for him as an individual doesn't mean that he isn't a good fit for president. He's got 4 years of experience now. And he can get in and hopefully correct some of the errors that he did make if he could get his, narcissism out of the way. But he could hopefully correct some of the errors that he made during his first 4 years and go in and actually clean house and get things really, really going for his next 4 years. And the fact that he doesn't have to worry about getting reelected again, I mean, outside of, having a third impeachment, BS impeachment crap. But, that I think is what he, honestly, I actually think he deserves it. I think he deserves a second chance because I think he got railroaded. And especially over the fact that, Ron DeSantis, while he is a fantastic governor, and he's done a lot of great things as a conservative, I think he jumped in the race a little too early. So we'll see what happens after this debate tonight, which should be ongoing right now. But we'll see after this debate tonight if something like that happens. I've even had people ask me, what about Vivek Ramaswamy? And, my answer has been pretty consistent with that one too, is that I like some of the things that he has to say. That doesn't mean I like everything, but I like some of the things that he has to say. And I do think that he has an opportunity to potentially come back for 2028. But 2024 is not his year, in my mind. But anyway, I mean, we have to, as Republicans or as conservatives, you know, I've told you on this program before too, is that the two-party system, it exists, and we have to make sure that we understand the impacts if someone were to go and become a quote unquote independent conservative versus an independent liberal, like what the No Labels Party is attempting to do, which honestly, I cheer them on. Let them go ahead and make their party, because right now Biden and Kamala Harris have really disgusted a lot of, you know, what I would consider moderate Democrats that might just jump to the No Labels Party. And as I've said before, if you have three candidates in the presidential race, if you have three candidates in the presidential race, and not one of them gains the 270 electoral college votes in order to actually become president, then it goes to the House of Representatives, and they are not very likely to vote for an independent candidate. That's why independent candidates have traditionally been problems and challenges in terms of being able to actually get into the office. So that's really the main issue that we have here going on with that entire kind of scenario. But you know what? I don't want to leave you necessarily on a negative note. I want to show you a couple of things that happened this week that I think are actual positives. So let me go ahead and head on over to this. These are again some of the wins that we need to take in. Here from the Epic Times, a federal judge has sided with a Christian activist who was banned by a university for calling a transgender student male. So things are starting to turn, let's say, in our life. And in this particular case, a federal judge has blocked the University of Wyoming from censoring a Christian activist who openly called a female identifying transgender student male. In a preliminary injunction issued on August 18th, the U.S. District Court in Wyoming sided with Todd Schmidt, an elder at Laramie Faith Community Church, ordering the university not to ban him from tabling on campus while the case proceeds. On December 2nd, 2022, Mr. Schmidt set up a table outside the UW Student Union with a sign that said, "God created male and female, and Artemis Langford is a male." Mr. Langford is a transgender student who joined the Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority earlier that year, prompting members to sue the National Greek Organization for admitting a biological male into an all-female group. When asked by the UW administrator to remove the student's name from his sign, Mr. Schmidt initially refused, but complied after they threatened to call the police on him. He continued to debate with students passing by for the remainder of that day. "I'm just trying to tell the truth and bring people to God. That's all there is. There are not any more genders than that. Biology teaches everybody about that," Mr. Schmidt said. Reported the student newspaper called The Branding Iron, where Mr. Langford is a reporter. The incident ultimately led the university placing a 1-year sanction on Mr. Schmidt. While he is still allowed in other areas of campus, he could no longer reserve a table in the student union until the spring of 2024. So, yeah, this is going to get even more and more, but this is good that the federal judge has actually sided with this. The thing about it is that, you know, again, this kind of falls into a free speech debate with this, a free speech scenario. And so just as much as we can't necessarily ban someone who is of the Nazi party from saying hateful things about, you know, and white supremacist stuff, this should be no different. There's one standard across the board. even if you don't like the speech, okay, even if you don't like the speech, you still have to, if you really back free speech, you still have to agree that they have a right to say it. Also, another one, this is also from the Epoch Times. Indiana Supreme Court upholds the state's near total abortion ban. This Indiana Supreme Court, so this is from the piece. The Indiana Supreme Court has decided a request to rehear a case seeking to overturn the state's abortion restrictions, thus allowing the law. Has denied a request. What did I say? The Indiana Supreme Court has denied the request to rehear a case, thus allowing the law to be implemented. Senate Bill 1 bans all abortions except in cases of rape, incest, a diagnosis of lethal fetal anomaly, or when the life of the mother is in danger. The exception to rape and incest are restricted to 10 weeks following fertilization. So, this is a good thing. I mean, one of the biggest arguments that everybody has with the abortion issue is they keep talking about how, well, what about a rape and incest and so on and so forth? Well, here it is. This is an Indiana law that was voted on apparently by the representatives in government. It was approved in August of 2022, so 1 year ago. And 1 month later, in September, a county judge issued a preliminary injunction against it in response to a lawsuit filed by the American Civil Liberties Union, representing abortion clinics, including Planned Parenthood. And it put the bill on hold amid the ongoing litigation. But then apparently on June 30th, the Indiana Supreme Court ruled that the state's abortion restrictions do not violate the state constitution and lifted the injunction, paving the way for SB 1 to go into effect. The ACLU and Planned Parenthood requested a rehearing, to which the state Supreme Court denied in a almost unanimous decision of 4-1. The rehearing request, filed in July, sought to clarify the scope of exemptions provided in SB 1's abortion restrictions with regards to protecting the life of the mother. When the request is denied, the abortion restrictions of SB 1, or with the request denied, the abortion restrictions of SB 1 will come into effect once the ruling is certified, a procedural step expected to be completed in a couple of days. So, So this is a win, folks, for those of you who are in the pro-life camp. Now, I am in the pro-life camp. I don't think that it should be used, that abortion should be used as a all-over birth control method. I do believe that cases of rape, incest, medical emergency, things like that, because anyone who has followed me on X, formerly known as Twitter, knows that I keep posting that it's a medical procedure. It's not designed for birth control. You want birth control? There's plenty of other ways for you to do birth control. It doesn't have to be abortion. Abortion should be safe and rare. That's what it should be. Also, let's see. So Alabama, according to the Daily Wire, so this is the last piece that I'll give you, but Alabama is allowed to enforce the ban on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for children. Now, I've been very clear on this one too, and that is that if you turn 18 and you decide that you want to do something like that with your body, that is entirely up to you. That is between you and your doctor and yourself and so on and so forth, okay? But sitting here and trying to force it on kids or making your kids dress a certain way or something along those lines and trying to ingrain in their heads that they are something that they aren't is a tantamount to a bit of child abuse. So anyway, back to the piece here from the Daily Wire again. An Alabama law banning giving cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers to children can take effect after a federal appeals court ruling. A ruling from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals comes as over 20 states have passed laws banning transgender procedures on children. The court ruled that there is no constitutional right for children to be given sex change procedures and that state legislatures had the right to make laws governing the procedures. They are correct. They are correct in that. This is the same situation as when you're talking about abortion. Falls to the 10th Amendment, folks. The judge, Judge Barbara Lagoa, who is a Trump appointee, wrote in her opinion, the plaintiffs have not presented any authority that supports the existence of a constitutional right to treat one's children with transitioning medications subject to medically accepted standards. Absent a constitutional mandate to the contrary, these types of issues are quintessentially the sort that our system of government reserves to legislative, not judicial action, Lagoa added. I mean, it's simple. It's our federalist system. That's pretty much it. So I wanted to leave you on those three notes, and that is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. You know, I would love to do a pet of the week, but I kind of have to have a pet of the week submitted. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, you folks are falling down because I don't have a pet of the week for tonight. And I have this fantastic new introduction for pet of the week that I've been wanting to show you. And I don't have one for this week. So do me a favor. If you want to see your pet shown on the Whiskey Musings broadcast on Wednesday, get your pet of the week in for next Wednesday. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at whiskeymusings.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at whiskeymusings.online. And you can have your pet featured next week on Pet of the Week. All right, we will see you all on Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Have a great rest of your week. Good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.